Back in 2008, iPhone landed in Eastern Europe and it completely crashed the networks. So we were scrambling to rebuild or adjust the networks, and through this, network optimization process, I started seeing some anomalies in networks in Romania, in networks in Albania, and I started coding a solution to detect this type of anomalies. One of the problems that I had when I was back in Europe and also when I came to the US was that my credit history wasn't following me from country to country.
Yeah,
And
right.
in US, it is even more complicated. Like we couldn't get an apartment, I couldn't get a mobile phone or an internet line. So it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
So I pitched an idea of a cash flow underwriting, let's say, system to assess the financial condition or financial stability, let's say, of a person based on their transactional behavior.
All right, welcome, Giannis, to my startup podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Yeah, and yeah, you're a friend of one of my previous guests, also Giannis, also from Greece. It's great to get to know the both of you. So, do you guys work together at NYU? Is that how you met?
Actually, Yanis was the first person that I met when I came in New York, and he helped me navigate, the New York
Nice.
thing. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. And so, what brought you to New York in the first place? Was it business? Was it your original startup? How'd that happen?
So I came to the US back in 2014 with a previous cybersecurity startup. I landed initially in Boston, and while we were in Boston, we got acquired by Hong Kong
Nice.
Telecom's international arm named PCCW Global. And they gave me three options: New York, go back to Athens, or go down to Washington, D.C. And I picked New York, and here we are.
That's great. And just for context, do you mind just telling me a bit about that original startup? Was it? I think it's in the fintech space. Is that right?
My current startup is in the fintech space. The previous one
Okay.
was in cybersecurity. So,
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, we were doing network analytics in order to understand if there are any anomalies or any behavioral changes on the traffic of private networks. And that was when cybersecurity was still called information security. So back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. And how did you come across that problem? Do you have a cybersecurity background, or was this just something that talking to, like, in a traditional product sense, talking to potential customers, seeing what their pain points are?
That's a great question. So my background is telecom engineering. So I used to
Okay.
design networks in Eastern Europe, primarily 3G networks. And back in 2008, iPhone landed in Eastern Europe and it completely crashed the networks. So we were scrambling, to rebuild or adjust the networks. And through this, network optimization process, I started seeing some anomalies in networks in Romania, in networks in Albania, and I started coding a solution to detect this type of anomalies. The company that I was working with back then, they told me that if that makes sense, an Israeli or a Silicon Valley company would be already focusing on that. I disagreed with them and I founded my first company, Crypteia Networks.
That's great. And so this anomaly that you found, I mean, is this some kind of signature of a bad actor, or what exactly is this?
These anomalies today, we call them DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service. Back
Yeah.
then, it was a blip in the network. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. So back then it was kind of like people weren't as aware of the types of attacks, and it just was some kind of strange phenomena going on that you had to handle.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
correct.
Okay. And then uh, from there, did you focus until acquisition on DDoS attacks, or did you branch out into other areas?
So we initially focused on identifying this type of DDoS attacks for telecom networks, and then we expanded to the corporate networks where we were trying to identify malicious actors trying to, get the data out of the company or infected PCs that they were communicating with CNCs. And we were providing this type of intelligence to the companies in order to adjust their firewall policies, their IPS, IDS systems, and things like that. And that, was very interesting for a wholesale telecom operator like PCCW Global, that they were looking to add value-added services on top of, a data pipe. And this intelligence was very interesting for them.
Okay, so did I hear you right? You said it was like a telecoms company that
Yeah, the
yeah.
company that acquired us is one of the top 10 wholesale telecom operators. Like they are running the fiber infrastructure between, like the cables that are going through the oceans.
Oh wow, yeah, that's such an interesting area to be in. So you mentioned before that there is some fear that maybe an American or Israeli startup might already occupy the space. How did you know that it would? But then you felt confident that you could still make it, make an impact in it. How did you know? How did you know to have that confidence, or how did you develop that confidence?
I didn't, and that's the ignorance of first-time
Yeah.
founder. So yeah, it was very interesting. There wasn't that much competition back then. Today there are hundreds of companies doing something similar, but back then it was still early, so we were lucky.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess you just got to keep on trying things, and then you can only try things to find out if you could get lucky. So it's good to always try things out, and then it may work out. So and then that company got acquired by a telecoms company, and that's when you moved to Boston first, and then to New York.
Correct. From Boston to New York. I was in Boston before the acquisition with the company. We were part of a startup program in Boston called the MassChallenge, which was a very interesting, let's say, gateway for us for the US market.
And sorry, MassChallenge. What's
Mass
that?
Challenge. Yeah, yeah. Mass like Massachusetts and challenge like
Oh.
challenge.
Oh, okay. And sorry, what is that? I'm not familiar with MassChallenge.
It is a startup program that operates in out of Boston. It was
Okay.
initially funded or supported by the state and the city of Boston. Now I think they are a more international program. Like they have sister programs in Israel and in Austin. So yeah, it's a big program.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely something I'd like to learn more about. So they helped you helped you guys expand in the US or yeah.
Correct, because before that program, we were primarily focused in Europe. We had
Yeah.
customers in Greece, in UK, Germany, and few other markets. But back in 2011, 2012, Greece was on track to exit European Union or to become bankrupt. So we couldn't raise money in Europe because of the geopolitical risk. So everyone was telling us you have to go to the US, and we found this program that was willing, let's say, to help us transform the company and from a European company become a US company. And that, was also a signal to the acquirer that we are, a viable business, a solid business. And,
Right.
few months afterwards, the acquisition discussion started. And in October 2014, everything was signed and sealed.
That's great. Yeah, it goes to show it really makes a big difference what ecosystem you're in and what the culture is, because there are all these little things that make it a lot easier that fill in the gaps when you do have that culture. You have the community that can help you each step along the way. So yeah, that definitely makes a big difference. That's great. Congrats that you had that
Thank you.
acquired. And then was it right away after that that you started your next venture?
The next venture started in 2018, so a couple of years after, because initially I had to stay with the company that acquired us, and
I see.
through this, I had to do initially the integration, and post integration, I became the head of research and development globally, which gave
Okay.
me a lot of exposure to other things and
Yeah.
open up my mind. And one of the problems that I had um, when I was back in Europe and also when I came to the US was that my credit history wasn't following me from country to country.
Yeah,
And
right.
in US, it is even more complicated. Like we couldn't get an apartment, I couldn't get a mobile phone or an internet line, so it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
So at the same about the same time in Europe, there was some new legislation around open banking, and I'm a data person. So when I saw that the regulation was opening up access to data in order for companies to use them to make some sense of who is that person that is applying for service A or service B, I reached out to a friend of mine back in Greece that she was in the credit risk space. I pitched an idea of cash flow underwriting, let's say, system to assess the financial condition or financial stability, let's say, of a person based on their transactional behavior. She said, let's do it. And this is how we started Finclude in 2018.
Okay, great. So it was really the classic you faced the problem yourself, and then so you wanted to create the solution for the problem that you were facing. And so does this metric, does it apply globally? Is that so it solves your solution of moving countries, or are you starting off in the US?
We started in Europe because
Okay.
the regulatory framework was ready.
Yeah.
And even in Europe, where the regulations were there, it took us almost 2.5 years to get the necessary licenses from the local supervising authorities. And when we got the license, COVID hit the
Oh,
business,
yeah.
so we had to hibernate. But other
Yeah.
markets like US, there is currently a discussion around open banking with, I think it's FTC 1033, let's say, directive around open banking that's currently challenged by JP Morgan. And in Latin America is very, let's say, well developed in countries like Mexico and Brazil. So there are initiatives across the globe that could facilitate something like that. And there are big players in the US that are doing something like that, like Nova Credit or Plaid. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a thing also in the US.
Gotcha. Got it. And so what kind of model are you using to come up with this credibility, this credit score? Are you yeah, what are the data sources? What are you doing with that data?
So, because Europeans are very strict on data
Right.
sharing and data management,
Sure,
it's
yeah.
a dual consent process where the individual that is going through the process has to consent both with us sharing the outcome of our analysis with the relevant parties that are interested in their, let's say, profile, and at the same time, the same person has to authorize the financial institutions that they work with to share their financial data with us. So we are using only data that are available through your banking accounts and your card accounts. And by analyzing how money flow, let's say, through your accounts and cards, like where you're spending, how much you are saving, how fast you are spending, how much you are earning, and a bunch of ratios, we are able to develop some ML models that can predict how you will behave along the way if you were to get a new credit line.
Yeah, so you mentioned that there has to be agreements on multiple sides in order to get the data. Do you ever run into an issue of having too sparse of data because of that, or are you able to yeah work within the people that do give up the data and just focus on that segment?
So when we started commercially in at late 2021, it was an uphill battle to convince people, to trust a company that no one
Sure.
knew. And
Yeah.
that's when we decided to pivot from a direct to consumer, let's say from a B2C to a more B2B model, where
I see.
we were fully integrated in the either the payout flow or the lending application flow of large retailers and financial institutions. So the individual that was going through the process, they were doing that because the party that will provide them either the service or the product were instructing them to do that. So they didn't have to, to have a belief in our brand. There was this, transferability of credibility of our partner, the B2B partner.
Okay, so let me see if I understand that correctly. You're saying that you kind of worked with a partner that's already working with these businesses, and they kind of just as part of the process said, use this credit score rather than having to sell to the business, or
Not exactly. We were selling to the business,
you
let's
were
say
okay.
a large e-commerce provider, and on the checkout screen, if they were to enable buy now pay later, they were asking the individual, you have to complete these three steps from Finclude before becoming eligible for the buy now pay later capability. So instead of having to convince you to come to Finclude and P score in order for me to go and say, hey, I have a breakdown score. Do you want it?
Yeah.
You were on the checkout because you wanted to buy your new iPhone and you were like, yes, I would like to pay that in 6 installments. And the e-commerce site will tell you, okay, but you have to complete these three screens at include. And you were like, yeah, hit me.
Ah, I see. So you offered a value proposition of allowing them to pay later, buy now, pay later,
Yeah.
if they signed up or if they agreed to those terms and conditions and then signed up for FinCentric. That makes sense. Yeah, because right now I'm working on a B2B dental software startup, and it's really tough to build trust. And so that's I'll take note of
Yeah.
that idea on it. Maybe there's a way I can use something similar. But um, did you find that pretty readily companies that trusted you once they started using FinCentric, or how did you build up that trust?
So in our previous life, both me and my co-founder, we were active in the banking sector, let's say in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So we had some contacts to open up the doors, but the primarily convincing tool were initially free proof of concepts and gradually paid pilots. And the results were convincing them that, doesn't matter if the company is new, this increase either the acceptance rate or reduce the default rate of applicant. So it was net new money for them, and they were after new money.
Okay, so the combination of having your foot in the door from knowing those contexts, and then also just having an effective model that you could prove saves them money. And did you have to work to provide them those metrics to show them this is how much money you're saving, or were they able to readily see that?
In the first, let's say, interactions, we had to do all the job and to
Right.
provide
Yeah.
all the reports and everything.
Right.
Now we have a reputation in the markets we operate, so it is much easier.
Got it. Yeah, so I usually ask founders if they had a mentor. I know you mentioned that your business partner that kind of you talked initially about this issue of credit scores. Is there someone that kind of onboarded you to this credit space, or did you already have experience from your banking days to get through it?
On credit, I would say my co-founder, Ioannis was the one that teach me everything about it. I mean, uh,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a data person, and she was kind enough to convert it to a data problem in order for me to
Yeah.
grasp it. And yeah,
Yeah. No, that sounds like. Would you say that's in your opinion? Do you think that's the best combination, kind of a technical person, and then plus a person that has domain knowledge? Do you think that's like one of the best co-founder pairs there?
100%. And
Yeah.
you also need a third person, one that will have no hesitation to call someone and ask for money. I mean, the biz dev person that has no
I
same,
see.
calling anyone for
Yeah, yeah.
any chance. It's also someone that you need to have early on.
Okay, so domain knowledge, tactical expertise, and also fundraising capability.
Not primarily selling. Fundraising, the founders can do, but
I
cold
see.
calling someone
Selling.
to sell, yeah.
And what have you guys found is the best sales tactic in B2B?
I think referrals and like
Referral.
yeah, warm intros and things like that work because financial services is a relatively, let's say, closed market and everyone knows everyone. So
Yes.
if you manage through your network to connect with one or two accounts and you succeed,
Yeah.
then the word moves around and new leads are reaching out to you. So it's more inbound than outbound.
Yeah. Yeah, no, networks are incredibly important for starting a startup or any kind of business. That's something I've definitely learned. So what would you say is the ultimate vision for FinCentric? Is it to create some kind of universal global credit score, or is it to horizontally expand into other spaces?
So a small correction, the name is Finclude, like financial
Oh,
inclusion.
sorry, Finclude. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
my mistake. My mistake. Yeah.
no worries. Actually, a few weeks back, we had a strategic investor coming in from the non-performing loan servicing line of business. And we think that's a very interesting, let's say, path for us because that will allow us to move from just the scoring component maybe to the whole underwriting, let's say, uh, an ecosystem, and that may allow us, to capture uh, more business from both the customers that we already have, but also expand to new markets with a more, let's say, a complete offering than just being, a data feed for you.
I see. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've seen that strategy of creating an ecosystem be very effective. I know I was doing some research several years ago on how, for example, Microsoft overtook IBM. Android kind of took stole the smartphone space away, and it was because they created an ecosystem, the App Store, or in Microsoft's case, just all the third-party programs on their system. And once you have other companies creating those apps for you and creating this ecosystem, it really creates a lot of leverage that it's hard to compete with. So yeah, that makes sense. And what do you think right now will keep your product at the forefront of the industry? What kind of separates it from the competitors?
I would say the key differentiation for us is that we spend a lot of time and effort on creating an environment where we can categorize and enrich transactions from different financial institutions that are, having different languages because in Europe you don't have just a single language like in the US where everyone speak English or at least the
Yeah,
transactions are primarily in English. You
yeah.
have transactions in Cyrillic, you have transactions in Greek, in a bunch of languages. So the work that we have done on transaction categorization and enrichment allows us to be multilingual on our understanding of how you are managing your money. And that is, I would say, the moat that we have created around us.
Okay, that makes sense. So I had a previous guest on. He's a VC guy who helps companies in East Asia expand internationally. And one of the big takeaways that he gave to me was that if you want to expand in a different country, then it's good to really hire people within that country because there's so many cultural things that you'll miss if you don't have that native expertise. So have you found that? I mean, right now you're living in New York. You're starting a company in over in Europe. Of course, you're from Europe, so you have that at least increase that expertise. Yeah, how's that been?
I would say that this is a very valid, let's say, point
Okay.
because, for example, if you go to a country like Romania or Poland,
Yeah.
People are expecting you to speak their language. No one is willing,
Yeah.
to discuss technical integration in English. They would
Yeah.
prefer to do that in the local native language. So, in this type, of large enterprise B2B deals, it's good to have boots on the ground that know both the language and the local peculiarities.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I could see that make a big difference. I mean, when things get complex in a technical topic, it's tough enough already. But yeah, with another language, I'm sure it'd be just too much for a lot of people. Uh, have you found it difficult to operate things in Europe from New York, or has that distance been broken down because everything's so accessible via Zoom these days and other platforms?
I would say that COVID was beneficial for us from
Yeah.
that point of view, that
Right.
everyone suddenly was more accommodating to remote interactions. Before that, I had to travel quite frequently. But I would say the hardest thing that we had to face in operating the company in Europe was how, let's say, cumbersome was the regulatory process for approval, and how much time, let's say, we had to spend before we were able to get our first dollar in, both as revenue and as investment. So, yeah, regulated businesses are a different animal.
What's the state of the industry? Would you say it's growing rapidly? It's becoming more important, or is it staying pretty static? What's the state of it?
I would say that post 2008 financial crisis,
Yeah.
the financial institutions became a bit more conservative on credit.
Yeah.
But as the markets, recovered and they were trying to open up again their credit lines, because there was a huge gap of data, because there was no credit available, and they were looking for alternative, let's say, uh, approaches on how to assess credit worthiness and affordability, and that created the opportunity for companies like us to enter the space.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say have been like some of the biggest challenges um, with starting Finclude? Is it those early stages, or is it the growth stage, or what are some of those details?
I would say the hardest part was the initial stage, like the startup stage, both because of the regulations and because you had to convince risk people in, large financial institutions to change the way they were thinking
Yeah.
risk. So yeah, it took us a lot of convincing, like tens of meetings and many months to
Yeah.
get the first person to, to sign up. So yeah, getting the first contract out of the door was the biggest
Step.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's often the case. It's just getting things started is just so difficult. And when you're going through all those meetings, trying to convince these financial institutions to believe in your product. I mean, at that time before you got any deal, I mean, did you start to doubt things like, oh, maybe we should pivot? Because in hindsight, it's like, oh, of course this made sense, it worked out. But I mean, at the time, did any doubts creep into your head that this would even work?
Not really. I think I was
Okay,
becoming more and more determined that, I
that's
mean,
good.
for me, the problem was so obvious, and I was like, how is it possible that I cannot see it? Like, it's right in front of their
Yeah.
eyes. It is hurting their numbers.
And what do you think it was that ultimately convinced them to to believe in it? I mean, was it just a matter of building up that relationship over time, or was it something different that you showed them that brought them over the threshold to believe in it?
I think within every organization, there are some people that they are more forward looking, and they were
Yes.
open to become your internal champion. And without those champions, I don't think that we would be where we are today.
Okay, so you really have to find, yeah, those early adopters that will champion your product.
Yeah.
And do you think that it was just the early adopters, or was it usually someone that specifically ran into issues related to the solution that you're providing, and therefore they became a champion because they really could see directly how this would help their day to day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These champions, usually they are people that are on, on the business side, like those that they are launching new loan products or new
Yeah.
credit card products, and they were trying to broaden up their market, and they didn't have access or tools, to broaden the market, and they were looking for ways to do that. And if you participate in all these conferences and meetups and things like that, people start hearing about what you do and they become curious. And this curiosity leads to meetings, pilots, and contracts.
Yeah. So yeah, you had to let it develop through that process of initial. They've heard about it, they're curious, and then from there build it up until they fully it's a fully developed idea in their head.
Exactly.
What are some insights that you would pass on to someone else, having you built and sold off one startup? You're working on your second, and it sounds like it's gotten to a more mature stage. What would you say is some of the biggest insights that would really provide the most value to someone that's starting a company right now?
There are a couple. The first one, I think, it is that you have to have very high conviction on what you are trying to build. Any rejection is not necessarily a bad thing. It is just a negative feedback that you have, to decompose
Yeah.
and keep what is relevant to what you are doing. So if you are thinking to enter the arena, the dark side of startupping, you have to have a stomach because you will get so many rejections from customers, from VCs, from angels, from everyone. So
Absolutely.
you have to be strongly opinionated in a good way, like in an open way
Yes.
to on what you are trying to build. So you shouldn't be, let's say, building a startup just because of the hype. You have to know why you are doing that. That's
Right.
the first thing. And the second thing, you have to think your co-founder or co-founders as your long-term partner. So don't start if you don't have the chemistry or
Yeah.
if you haven't iron out the relationship between those people. And the last one, it is that you have to have a safety net around you, like um, a group of people that you can go and get some positive energy during the bad days, because there are going to be a lot of bad days initially, and you need a circle of friends or close ones that they can support you. You need this support system around you.
Yeah, that support system really is essential. It's such a mental challenge starting a company more than anything, and so that definitely makes a big difference to sort of be part of a startup ecosystem where other people are also going through a similar thing. That's also very helpful.
Yep.
I've been trying to do by hosting events and stuff in the city, and it that way helps a lot, so that you can sympathize with each other and support each other. You mentioned about having a really good or having a co-founder that you have great chemistry with. That's absolutely essential. It's kind of someone that you're almost married to, right?
Yep.
But so some people these days are wondering, can they get away with being a solo founder with the way that AI is giving us more leverage to do more with less? Do you think that it's possible, or that it's a good idea for someone to be a solo founder these days?
It is possible, and you can achieve a lot from the, let's say, from the product side, or maybe even from the business development side. But if
Yeah.
you want to vent to someone, if you want someone to lean on because you want to cry or whatever,
Right,
you
right.
cannot do that with AI.
That's true.
AI,
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, doesn't have that much compassion towards you.
That's true. It's a lonely road as a solo founder, versus
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So even if you could do it either way, it'd be good to look back and have someone that shared the experience, that shared the story with you, that you could reflect back on and talk about the good times.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, you definitely need someone along the way. It's very lonely.
And for your first company, I'm assuming you also had a co-founder?
Yeah, I had two co-founders
Two
back then.
co-founders, yeah. And were they technical or were they
Business, both of them.
And as a technical founder, do you usually look for? It seems like you pair up with business partners versus technical. Is that deliberate? Would you rather that than pair up with someone that's technical?
Not really. I think in the first case in Crypteia Networks, the cybersecurity startup,
Yeah.
I was deeply technical on the matter, so I didn't felt back then that I need, let's say, support on that direction.
Yeah.
And in Finclude, I had, let's say, the technical expertise to manage data, but I couldn't understand what to do with the data. So I was looking for a subject matter expert. So I think, back to the startup advice, that
Yeah.
if you're trying to solve a problem, it's good to know what you know and be very honest on what you don't, and try to
Yeah.
cover that gap, let's say, with a co-founder.
Yeah, so it really helps to be able to self-reflect and see what are your gaps, what kind of co-founder would most complement those gaps and fill them in. That
Exactly.
makes a lot of sense. All right, well, Giannis, it's been a pleasure getting to know your story. I've learned a lot for myself, and on my own startup journey, I'm gonna factor in a lot of the advice that you just gave. And I look forward to seeing how Finclude develops and any new ventures that you end up working on.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Looking forward to see this live.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Appreciate that. Thanks.